What's going on, guys? It's Elias. Welcome back to another video. So for today's video, we're going to be covering 10 things not to do in your brand new car. So as you guys know, I've recently gotten this brand new C8 Corvette, and I've been having a blast in it. And I've been looking through the forums, I've been talking to people, and one of the main questions that I get is, how do I treat my brand new car? There's so much information out there. There's people talking about what to do, what not to do. And I feel like putting together a nice little video for you guys so that if you have any questions, I can refer you to it, and hopefully it helps out anybody that's on there. So that these 10 things, of course, are going to be for every car out there, or truck, or anything new that you buy, any vehicle that you buy brand new. Some of the things I'm going to talk about specifically about this car are going to be in there as well. So if you have a brand new C8 Corvette or a brand new Civic Type R, or any car you buy brand new, this all applies to that. You gotta love that V8 rumble. So the first thing I want you guys to really know about maintaining and keeping up with your brand new car is, of course, that you're not gonna find a better resource than your car's manual. Every car is different, every truck is different, every engine is different, and you're gonna find a lot of useful, good information in your car's manual. So start with that and follow whatever instructions your car's manual states. It can be very different from car to car. So with that said, number one on my list of things not to do in your brand new car is do not ignore your temperature gauge. Don't ignore your temperature gauges in your car. So a lot of cars only come with one temperature gauge. That's the coolant temperature, and it doesn't really tell you that much, unfortunately. This car, the C8 Corvette, gives you oil temperature, transmission fluid temperature, coolant temperature. It even gives you the temperature of the tires. So definitely do not ignore the temperatures of your brand new car. It's something for you to think about. It's something for you to realize. It's extremely important especially when you're starting your car. So as you start your car, especially if it's on a cold day, be sure to be gentle with it. Be sure not to romp on it right away as you get on the road. Temperatures are really important. One of the main reasons is because fluids in your vehicle need to get up to temperature for them to work properly. It's often a misconception for people that if they leave the car running and idling for, let's say, 5 minutes, that, oh, I warmed up for 5 minutes, it's good to go. That's wrong. In order for your car to get up to temperature properly, you need to make sure to start driving it. So my recommendation is you start your car within 5 to 10 seconds of starting your car, set off. Give it about 5 to 10 seconds for everything to start, moving around and getting lubricated. But after that, set off and drive it gently for, I would say at the very least, 5 minutes. That is the bare minimum amount of time before your car can get up to temperature. If your car's not up to temperature, again, make sure you don't romp on it, you don't get full throttle on it, you don't drive it as you normally would. It's something very important that a lot of people miss, and it's extremely important when you have a brand new car. If you don't make sure your temperatures are good when you start driving it, you're gonna have a bad time. The next one's pretty obvious. It's in most manuals, but it's worth mentioning again, and it's don't rev your engine like crazy. So in the C8 Corvette, when you first get your car, your first 500 miles, your RPMs are going to be limited to 3,500 RPMs. Now there is a possibility for you to actually go above that if you control the paddles and gears yourself. Try to avoid that as much as you can, and honestly, get as far away as possible from redline as you possibly can. You do not want to be stressing out the engine because it hasn't broken in yet. The piston rings may not be fully seated yet. The lubrication channels may not be fully working yet. A lot of different things go into how these engines perform. You definitely don't want to be messing with an engine that's brand new and just starting to break in. So once this car hits 500 miles, the limitations on your RPMs goes away. I still recommend that you be selective when you redline the car. Try not to do it too much. And it's something that it's really difficult to do, especially on sports cars, but it's very important for the longevity of your sports cars. Do not go full throttle. Don't stomp on that accelerator pedal. I know it's hard for a lot of you guys, including me, to not do that. It's super fun to get in your Mustang or in your Corvette or in your STI and just start romping on it immediately, right? I wanted to do that in my Type R, I wanted to do that in my Civic hatchback, and I want to do it in my Corvette. It's something you really need to wait in order for your Corvette to actually brake in properly, and not just your Corvette, any engine to brake in properly. So do not floor it. What happens is that there's a lot of combustion pressures that get raised up as you floor it that the engine may not be ready for quite yet, and it may knock some piston rings out of alignment. Possibly, it's the worst case scenario. It does happen. You may get less performance out of your engine in the long run. And it's just something that needs to be avoided at all costs. Your engine will thank you for it. While we're at it, talking about the pedals, don't stomp on your brake pedals either. Now, obviously, if you need to avoid a possible crash, or if you need to stop in an emergency case, then you can't help it. But if you can help it, try not to brake too hard. It's not good for the brakes. It's not good for the driveline. It's not good for the car that's being broken in for you to stomp on the brake pedal as hard as you can. Try to wait for at least 1,000 miles, I would say. The C8 Corvette manual says 500 miles before you do that. And actually, every single time you get brand new brake rotors or brand new brake pads on any car that you own, follow a proper braking procedure. So there's two different ways to do it. Braking in the brake pads properly. I'll cover that in a different video. But when you're braking in a brand new car, you definitely want to avoid braking hard, which is one of the ways you brake in brake pads. This next one is actually one of the most important ones, and one of the ones that a lot of people miss and forget to do. And before we get there, please take a minute to hit that subscribe button. Take a minute to hit that like button if you like the video. I truly appreciate when you guys do that. If you guys like me making these videos for you guys, that you find them helpful in any way or entertaining, be sure to subscribe and like. That's how I know you guys like me doing this. If you don't do that, then I know you guys don't like me doing this, and I'll go do something else. So I do appreciate that. So the next one, and I think the most important one and the most overlooked one, is checking your fluids. Don't forget to check your fluids. It's one of the things that everyone forgets to do, including me. Every single time you fill up your car with gasoline, especially during the braking period, you need to be in the engine bay checking your fluid if your car has a good capability. And I'm not just talking about oil, but oil is probably the most important. I'm also talking about radiator fluid, your brake fluid reservoir. Check all of those to make sure that they're topped off, there's no crazy leaks, there's not some missing by chance, and everything is working optimally. So let's concentrate on the oil for a little bit. On new cars especially, and especially direct injected cars, so diesel cars and these new direct injected vehicles, the C8 Corvette included, you can get something called oil/fuel dilution. So what is oil and fuel dilution? It's very simple. It's when your piston rings don't control the blow-by of the engine, right? So you get some extra oil going into the cylinder, that's called blow-by. On the other side of it, when fuel gets injected, especially when the engine's cold, fuel goes through the piston rings, especially if the engine's still braking in, and it can get diluted within the oil. Honda actually has a huge problem with oil/fuel dilution, in that their engines are so efficient, they don't get up to heat properly, not every single time. If they don't get heated up enough, that fuel in that oil never gets a chance to evaporate. If it doesn't evaporate, it actually increases your oil reserves. You may think that's a good thing, but it's not. You definitely do not want fuel to be the lubricating liquid in your piston rings or your crankshaft, for example. Fuel is not a good lubricator. So it's a huge problem. make sure to check your fluids, make sure the oil level is, you know, not gotten lower. So because of blow-by, you tend to burn a little bit of oil. Make sure that you're not low on oil, and make sure you're not over on oil. If you have too much oil in the reservoir, you may have a fuel/oil dilution problem. It may be time to change your oil preemptively. So it's something to keep in mind, as well as your radiator fluid, your brake fluid. If those are too low, you may have a leak somewhere you may not be aware of. You may have another problem you may not be aware of. Or the factory may have forgotten to fill it up all the way. That has happened before in the past. This next one, I'm actually kind of at fault of doing a little bit too much. It's don't let your engine idle for too long. Idling your engine, especially when it's breaking in, is something that everyone should really be careful of. Even if your engine's not breaking in, idling is very wasteful. It wastes gasoline. Your engine doesn't get up to temperature fast enough. If you're trying to get it up to temperature, you're just literally throwing money out the window if all you're doing is letting your engine idle. Now, the reason that I'm guilty of this is because I tend to, you know, when I get gas or when I stop at a shopping center or something, a lot of people tend to, if they're walking around, tell me to take the window down and talk to me, and I'm kind of a talkative person, so I tend to take my time and talk to them. The entire time I'm talking to them, obviously, my engine is just idling. Not a smart thing to do. Now, actually, Corvette is very smart, and I think if you let your engine idle for more than 10 minutes, it automatically shuts off for you. So that's a good thing. I have not, thankfully, gotten to that point where I've left it idling for 10 minutes. But it's not good, especially when you're breaking in an engine, to let it idle for very long at all. So just keep that in mind. In that same vein, varying your engine RPMs is extremely important. If you go to any single manual for any car out there, the braking period suggests for you to always be varying your engine speed. Extremely important, because if all you're doing is sitting at idle, for example, or sitting at 1100 RPMs, 2000 RPMs, and that's all it does for an extended period of time. Let's say you're doing cruise control, something you should not do when you're braking in your car, your engine won't brake in properly. It needs that varied engine speed for it to actually properly brake in the piston rings and everything else that needs to be broken in together. So don't let it idle, and vary your engine speed. That's extremely important. And for the C8 Corvette specifically, I put it in manual mode if you're on the highway, and I just, every once in a while, I put it in 6th, and I drive in 6th for 30 seconds, and I put it in 7th, and I drive in 7th for 30 seconds. Let's say I want to keep it at 60 miles an hour. That'll vary the engine speed. You don't have to be crazy about it. It doesn't have to be religious, but it's something for you to keep in mind. And especially a performance car, but even regular cars need to do this. If you have an automatic transmission, you can probably manually shift it yourself. You can put it in manual mode and shift it. If not, then the way you do it is you vary your actual speed, and that'll vary your RPM. So you go from 70 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour to 80 miles an hour, depending on your speed limits, etc. And that'll also vary your engine speed. So make sure you do that, and make sure you're really keeping on top of that, because that's one of the most important things about breaking in an engine properly. This next one, and we only have 3 left, this next one is also very, very important. And a lot of people are guilty of this because they have no other option, they have no other choice but to do this. And it's very unfortunate, and the way you mitigate it is very simple, actually, and I'll tell you. So one thing you should totally try to avoid is avoid making short trips. If you're turning on and you're braking in your car, short trips are probably the worst thing you can do. It goes back to my oil/fuel dilution problem. You're gonna have a lot of that problem. But also, getting it up to proper temperature is what's going to break in the engine. It's gonna break in the piston rings, it's gonna break in the rest of the engine and transmission as well. If it doesn't get up to proper temperature, it never really operates in the way it's supposed to operate. For example, the C8 Corvettes, the normal operating temperature of the C8 Corvette is around 174 degrees transmission fluid temperature, 174 degrees Fahrenheit oil temperature, and around 190 degrees Fahrenheit coolant temperature. That's the normal operating temperature. If you're not getting it up to at least that temperature, you're not letting the car warm up. But in addition to that, if you're not letting it sit at that ideal temperature for long enough, it may not have enough time to actually get rid of the extra fuel that could be in the oil pan. And that can lead to a lot of issues when it comes to oil dilution, fuel dilution, and lubrication of your engine. It can lead to a lot of problems. So a lot of people that own cars may only have to drive 2 or 3 miles every single day to get to their either workplace or their commute place, and their engines never have an opportunity to actually warm up. My recommendation to you guys is, and I know you guys probably don't want to do it, I would say after you get home every day from work, or if you're going home from work, take the long way around. You know, take that little half-hour way that you may like to see, or give yourself an excuse after work to go to that next area to just take a look at that new neighborhood that you've been meaning to look at, or make excuses for yourself to go for that longer drive. Ideally, you want to be in your car driving at a decent speed for about 20 to 30 minutes for any issues that may arise to be taken care of. Now, these last two are, for the most part, fairly easy for almost everybody that's watching this video to take advantage of or not do. It's hard for sports car guys like me not to do this almost immediately. So realize when I'm telling you these two things, I'm really talking to myself and my fellow car enthusiasts. But it's still important to keep in mind, and the reason why may surprise you. So the first one, the last two, the first one is go easy on the twisty roads, right? If you're on a beautiful canyon road, don't go too fast. Obviously, you're not accelerating too hard anyway. You're not hitting that brake pedal too hard anyway. You're not going crazy with your speed anyway. But in addition to all of that, don't take the turns too crazy. There's many reasons for that. First, especially when you first get your car, and this goes every single time you get brand new tires, you have to be careful because those tires will not be up to operating conditions quite yet. You have to kind of break them in for about 300 to 500 miles, honestly, before the tire gets up to operating conditions. The other things that you got to keep in mind, especially on the newer cars with adaptive suspension, they have these really cool shocks that change viscosity on the go. For example, the C8 Corvette with its magnetic ride, it's an awesome suspension, but if you go hard on it immediately, the seals inside the suspension, the seals inside the shocks may be overburdened. Now, it's very rare that this happens, but it can happen. And I would just give it at least 500 to 1,000 miles before you go nuts in your favorite canyon road. It's just prudence, first of all, and it makes sense, and it'll save your suspension from some extra wear and tear. And then finally, the last one is go easy on your transmission. Most of the braking procedures that I was talking to you about have been about the engine. We just talked about the suspension. Let's talk about the transmission for a bit. Now, there's 4 different types of transmission out there. There's the regular slush box automatics, there's the dual clutch automatics, there's the manuals, and then there's the CVTs. All of them benefits from being broken in easily, properly, especially the CVTs. But let's talk about the manual transmissions first. So if you have a manual transmission car, you have a dry clutch and you have synchros. If you're really rough with your shifts, if you're not smooth with your shifting, you can prematurely wear your synchros and prematurely wear your clutch. It's something that a lot of novices with brand new Civic SIs do, unfortunately. I've done videos on what not to do with your manual transmission car. I'll put a link down in the description for you guys to see that. It's really important for you guys to follow those rules. The next one is a regular slush box automatic. Go easy on those. Don't go shifting like crazy. Don't go flooring it and making it change really quickly. That transmission, those, especially the new ones, the ZF8 speeds, the ZF7 speeds, the 6 speeds, they're very complex. There's a mechatronic sleeve to it. There's a lot of things in there that are, when brand new, need to be properly kind of broken in. And then finally, we get to the dual clutch transmission, right? So dual clutch transmissions, they're very similar, especially these wet dual clutch transmission cars. They're very similar to a regular slush box automatic, but the biggest difference is that it has 2 clutches, wet clutches in the case of the C8 Corvettes, that are in fluid, and they are probably the most complex transmissions out there. It's something that, because of our engineering prowess, because of this modern science, we have these amazing machines that are capable of pulling off really fast, extremely quick shifts almost seamlessly. In order for that to all work properly, you need to be able to break it in properly. So Don't go, again, downshifting quickly, expecting the transmission to downshift quickly. Be sure to be easy on the transmission, especially when it's cold. That goes for any transmission. If it's cold, go easy on it. Don't go nuts on it. If there's a sport mode, don't use sport mode. If you can avoid it, use touring mode in the C8 Corvette for the first 500 miles. If you have the patience for it. I know I struggle with it, but it is what it is. And just be easy on your transmission. Your transmission will thank you for it. It'll last a lot longer. Alright guys, a little bit of a longer video. I hope you guys enjoyed what I said. I hope you guys benefit from what I've said and explained to you guys. It's something that we all have to keep in mind when we buy new cars. We're not always buying new cars. You know, if you're someone like me, you buy a new car every couple of years, maybe 3 years. Most people buy a new car every 5 to 6 years. That's about the average. So you may forget that, oh, it's a brand new car. I can't treat it like my old car. I hope it was helpful. If you think it was helpful, let me know in the comments below. Hit that like button if you like the video. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you want more C8 Corvette or 7 Type R or racing content, or just if you like my channel. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.